What if one simple flag of pride tore your world apart overnight? What if the love you cherished forced you to face the ugliest side of humanity? What if the haters who shunned you suddenly stood in line, hats in hand, to say they were wrong? In the quiet cul-de-sac of Maple Ridge, Denver, Colorado, Kameron Reynolds stood on his front porch with a hammer in one hand and a sense of quiet defiance in the other. The rainbow flag he had just unfurled snapped gently in the late spring breeze, its vivid stripes catching the afternoon sunlight like a promise he could no longer keep hidden. At 32, Kameron had built a comfortable life as a freelance graphic designer working from the cozy home he shared with Elias. Today marked their 3rd anniversary, and he wanted the world, or at least the suburban street, to see that their love was real, unapologetic, and worth celebrating. He stepped back to admire his work, the wooden pole steady against the white siding of their 2-story craftsman. Across the street, Mrs. Johnson paused while watering her roses, her watering can frozen mid-air. Next door, Mr. Thompson, a retired accountant known for his lawn signs supporting traditional values, stared from his driveway with a scowl that could curdle milk. Kameron felt the familiar knot in his stomach tighten, but he refused to let it show. Elias was inside finishing dinner, humming an old jazz tune, and Kameron needed this moment to feel like a declaration rather than a dare. 3 years ago, Kameron had met Elias at a community art fair downtown. Elias, a high school counselor with warm brown eyes and an easy laugh, had been volunteering at a booth for LGBTQ youth support. Their first conversation stretched into hours, and by the end of the night Kameron knew he had found someone who saw him, not the careful, closeted version he had presented to his conservative family back in Iowa, but the full, messy, hopeful man he was becoming. They moved in together last fall, choosing Maple Ridge for its good schools and tree-lined streets, hoping the quiet neighborhood would let them simply be. Now the flag fluttered like a beacon. Kameron walked inside, the screen door creaking behind him. Elias looked up from the stove, wooden spoon in hand, his dark curls still damp from a shower. "You did it," he said softly, a smile breaking across his face. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying," Kameron admitted, crossing the kitchen to wrap his arms around Elias's waist. "But right." They stood there for a long moment, the scent of garlic and basil filling the air, the low hum of the refrigerator the only sound. Outside, the neighborhood settled into its usual evening rhythm. Kids on bikes, dogs barking, porch lights flickering on. But something had already shifted. By the next morning, the whispers had begun. Mrs. Johnson told the mail carrier that those 2 boys next door are making a statement. Mr. Thompson muttered to his wife over coffee that we didn't move here for this kind of display. Kameron tried to ignore the sidelong glances as he walked to his car for a coffee run. When he returned, a small group of neighbors had gathered at the end of the driveway, pretending to discuss lawn care while shooting looks at the flag. One teenager yelled from a passing bike, "Nice decoration, dude." The sarcasm stung like a slap. Kameron closed the garage door and leaned against it, heart racing. He had faced prejudice before. Subtle comments from college roommates, awkward silences at family dinners. But this felt different. This was his home. Elias found him there, concern etching lines around his eyes. "They'll get used to it," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Or they won't. Either way, we're not hiding." That afternoon, the first direct confrontation came. Mr. Thompson knocked on the door, his face flushed. "Look, Reynolds, I don't want trouble, but that flag, it's not what we stand for around here. Kids see it, you know?" Kameron stood tall, Elias at his side. "It's our home, Mr. Thompson. We're not hurting anyone." The older man shook his head and walked away, muttering about pushing an agenda. Inside, Kameron sank onto the couch, doubt creeping in like fog. Was this the price of being visible? Elias sat beside him, taking his hand. "Remember when I told you about my dad kicking me out at 17? I survived that. We'll survive this." Kameron nodded, but the seed of fear had been planted. That night, as they lay in bed listening to the distant hum of traffic on the highway, Kameron wondered if love truly required such public courage, or if he had just invited a storm into their peaceful life. The following week brought more. Anonymous notes appeared in their mailbox. "Take it down." A group of mothers at the community pool stopped their conversation when Kameron walked by. His own sister, Lauren, called from Chicago, laughing at first until he described the cold stares. "You're braver than I am," she said. "Just be careful." Even his parents in Iowa sent a carefully worded text. "We support you, but maybe tone it down for the neighbors." Kameron deleted it without replying. Elias tried to lighten the mood with takeout Thai food and old movies, but the tension lingered. One evening, while they sat on the back patio watching the sunset paint the mountains gold, Elias shared a memory from his counseling work. "I had a kid last year who thought being gay meant he'd never have a home. I told him stories like ours. Now you're living one." Kameron smiled despite the ache in his chest. The flag still waved out front, a bright splash of color against the beige uniformity of Maple Ridge. But every time he glanced at it, he felt both pride and a growing unease. By the end of the month, the mockery had settled into a steady rhythm. Kids avoided eye contact on the sidewalk. The neighborhood association meeting notice arrived in the mail with a subtle note about maintaining community standards. Kameron stared at the paper, wondering how one piece of fabric could unravel the fragile acceptance he had fought so hard to earn. Elias pulled him close on the couch. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Yet in the quiet hours before sleep, Kameron lay awake, the flag's image burning behind his eyelids, questioning whether visibility was worth the isolation slowly closing in around them. The isolation deepened faster than Kameron expected. By mid-June, the once friendly waves from neighbors had turned into deliberate avoidance. When he mowed the lawn on Saturday mornings, conversations across fences abruptly ended. Elias noticed it too, especially at the local grocery store where the cashier who used to chat about sports now rang them up in silence. "It's like we're contagious," Elias said one evening, chopping vegetables with more force than necessary. Kameron tried to laugh it off, but the weight pressed heavier each day. His internal storm raged louder than the external one. In the quiet of his home office, sketches for client logos blurred as memories flooded back. He remembered coming out to his parents at 22, the long silence that followed, the way his father changed the subject to football scores. Elias had been the first person to make him feel seen without conditions. Their first date had been a simple hike in the foothills, sharing stories of childhood dreams and hidden fears under pine trees. Elias had kissed him at the summit, the Denver skyline glittering below, and Kameron knew this was home. Not a place, but a person. Now that home felt besieged. One Tuesday, while Elias was at school, a rock wrapped in paper sailed onto their porch. The note read, "Real men don't wave that junk." Kameron's hands shook as he crumpled it. He considered calling the police but decided against it. He didn't want to escalate or give the neighbors more ammunition. Instead, he confided in his closest straight friend, Marcus, over coffee downtown. Marcus, a married accountant from the next block, shifted uncomfortably. "I get it, man, but maybe the flag's a bit much for this neighborhood. People talk." The betrayal stung deeper than any rock. Marcus had been best man at their small commitment ceremony last year. Now he was distancing himself with careful excuses about family time. Kameron returned home heavier. Elias sensed the shift immediately. "Marcus?" he guessed, setting down his counseling files. They sat on the porch swing that evening, the rainbow flag rippling above them like a defiant banner. Elias shared his own scars, the foster homes after his father's rejection, the nights he wondered if love would ever feel safe. "I chose you because you make me believe it can," he said quietly. Kameron rested his head on Elias's shoulder, the swing creaking softly. For a moment, the neighborhood noise faded, but the pressure built. The neighborhood association sent a polite letter requesting consideration for visual harmony. Kameron read it aloud to Elias, voice cracking. "They're asking us to erase ourselves." That night, doubt won a small victory. Kameron stood at the window staring at the flag, wondering if taking it down would restore peace. Elias stopped him gently. If we hide now, we lose more than neighbors, we lose us. Meanwhile, at Elias's high school, a 16-year-old boy named Tyler had started visiting his office more frequently. Tyler was quiet, artistic, and clearly struggling. Elias recognized the signs, the same ones he had worn at that age. He encouraged Tyler to talk, never pushing, simply listening. One afternoon, Tyler whispered, "I think I'm gay, but my dad would kill me if he knew." Elias's heart clenched. Tyler's father was none other than Mr. Thompson, the loudest voice against their flag. Kameron learned about Tyler during a late-night conversation. "I can't tell you details," Elias said, respecting confidentiality, "but helping that kid reminds me why we do this." The connection felt ironic and heavy. Kameron began noticing Tyler riding his bike past their house, glancing at the rainbow flag with something like hope in his eyes. Without realizing it, Kameron had become part of a larger story unfolding blocks away. Family tensions rose too. His sister Lauren visited for a weekend, bringing wine and hugs. "The flag looks great," she said, but her eyes held worry. Their parents called again, this time more insistent. "We love you, but your lifestyle is causing problems. Think of your future." Kameron hung up angry and hurt, the old wounds reopening. Elias held him through the tears, reminding him that chosen family could be stronger than blood. By July 4th, the neighborhood block party went on without them. Invitations mysteriously skipped their mailbox. Kameron and Elias watched fireworks from their backyard, the distant booms echoing their isolation. Yet in that quiet rebellion, something shifted inside Kameron. He realized the flag wasn't just fabric. It was a lifeline for anyone like Tyler who needed to see it. When Elias kissed him under the sparkling sky, Kameron whispered, "I'm not taking it down." The decision felt like armor and vulnerability all at once. The escalation came 2 days later. Someone slashed the tires on their car overnight. No note this time, but the message was clear. Kameron stood in the driveway at dawn, staring at the damage, rage and fear twisting together. Elias called the insurance company while Kameron paced. "This is getting dangerous," Elias said softly, but neither suggested removing the flag. Instead, they replaced the tires and hung a second, smaller pride sticker on the mailbox. The small act of defiance drew more stares, more whispers. Inside, Kameron's mind raced through every choice that led here. The move to Maple Ridge, the decision to be open, the love that made hiding impossible. Elias's steady presence grounded him, but the internal crisis deepened. Was he being selfish? Was he risking their safety for a symbol? That night, as rain pattered against the windows, Kameron lay awake beside the man he loved, the flag outside standing sentinel against the storm gathering around them. The summer heat thickened the air in Maple Ridge, mirroring the growing tension. Vandalism escalated from tires to graffiti on their fence. "Freak flag." Spray-painted in crude red letters one humid night. Kameron scrubbed it off at sunrise, sweat mixing with silent tears. Elias helped without a word, their shoulders brushing in quiet solidarity. The police report filed, but the responding officer's sympathetic shrug spoke volumes. Kids being kids. No arrests, no real investigation. Kameron's internal battle intensified. In therapy sessions he had started attending downtown, he unpacked the shame he thought he had buried years ago. "I keep wondering if I'm forcing my life on them," he told the counselor. The sessions helped, but home felt like a battlefield. Elias noticed the distance growing in small ways, Kameron pulling away during hugs, staring at the flag for minutes at a time. "Talk to me," Elias pleaded one evening over pasta. Kameron finally admitted the fear. "What if I lose everything for this?" Elias's response was steady. "You already have me. That's not everything." Their friendship circle shrank further. Marcus stopped returning texts entirely. Other acquaintances from the gym offered awkward excuses. Kameron felt the loneliness like a weight on his chest. Yet in that isolation, he found unexpected strength in small routines with Elias. Morning coffee on the porch under the flag, evening walks where they held hands despite the stares. These moments became anchors. At Elias's school, Tyler's visits grew more frequent. One afternoon, Tyler arrived with a bruised cheek and a story he could barely voice. His father had found a hidden journal. Elias listened, offered resources, and quietly connected Tyler with a youth shelter network. He couldn't share details with Kameron, but the strain showed in Elias's tired eyes. "Some kids don't have the safety we built," he said. Kameron understood without words. That night, they sat on the porch swing again, the flag glowing under the streetlight. Then came the turning point neither saw coming. Late one August night, a frantic knock echoed through the house. Kameron opened the door to find Tyler, backpack slung over his shoulder, eyes wild. "I can't go home. Dad found out everything." Rain poured outside, soaking the boy. Elias pulled him in without hesitation. They made up the guest room, offered hot chocolate, and listened as Tyler poured out years of fear. Kameron's heart broke for the kid who reminded him so much of his younger self. The next morning, Elias called the school counselor hotline while Kameron drove Tyler to a safe house downtown. The drive was quiet, but Tyler glanced at the rainbow sticker on the dashboard. "Your flag, it gave me courage to write in that journal," he whispered. Kameron swallowed hard. He had no idea his simple act had reached across the street. Back home, the neighborhood noticed Tyler's absence. Mr. Thompson began asking around, his usual bluster replaced by frantic worry. Whispers shifted from mockery to speculation. Kameron and Elias kept Tyler's location private, respecting his safety. But the secret weighed on them. Elias's work at school intensified as he advocated for better support programs. Kameron threw himself into designing a new logo for a local LGBTQ nonprofit, channeling his turmoil into creation. Family dynamics cracked open too. Lauren flew in again, this time bringing their mother for a surprise visit. The conversation was raw. "We were wrong to push you to hide," his mother admitted over tea. Tears flowed as years of silence broke. Elias sat quietly supportive, his presence a bridge. For the first time, Kameron felt his family inching toward acceptance. Yet the external storm raged on. A neighborhood petition circulated to preserve family values, gathering dozens of signatures. Mr. Thompson led the charge, his face appearing in local news clips decrying inappropriate displays. Kameron watched the segment, anger mixing with pity. He knew the man's son was the reason for the very flag he hated. The irony burned. One evening, after Tyler called from the shelter to say he was doing better, Elias and Kameron stood under the flag together. "Helping him, it's bigger than us now," Elias said. Kameron nodded, the doubt easing slightly. But the internal crisis peaked when another note appeared. "Your kind isn't welcome." He tore it up, but the words lingered. That night, he confessed to Elias, "Sometimes I wish we'd never hung it." Elias held him tight. Then Tyler might still be suffering alone. The words settled deep, shifting something fundamental in Kameron's heart. As September approached, school bells rang and leaves hinted at change. The flag still flew, weathered but bright. Kameron realized the mockery had forged them stronger, the misunderstandings revealing truths about loyalty and courage. Elias's steady love and Tyler's quiet gratitude became the compass guiding him through the prejudice. Yet the highest peak of conflict loomed just ahead, when the truth would finally force every neighbor to confront the man they had shunned. Autumn arrived with crisp air and falling leaves, but the neighborhood tension refused to cool. The petition gained traction, and a community meeting was scheduled at the rec center. Kameron and Elias debated attending. "We don't owe them an explanation," Elias argued. Yet Kameron felt pulled toward it, a need to stand in the room and be seen. They went together, hands linked, the rainbow flag left waving at home like a silent witness. The room buzzed with familiar faces. Mr. Thompson stood at the podium, voice booming about protecting our children. Whispers rippled as Kameron and Elias took seats in the back. When the floor opened for comments, Kameron rose. His voice shook at first but steadied. That flag represents love in my home. The same love many of you celebrate. If it offends you, that's your choice. But it harms no one. The room fell silent. Mr. Thompson's face reddened, but he said nothing. After the meeting, a few neighbors lingered. Mrs. Johnson approached hesitantly. I didn't know it was personal for you. Kameron nodded, offering no more. Back home, Elias pulled him into a long embrace. You were brave tonight. The small victory felt hollow against the ongoing cold shoulders. Meanwhile, Tyler's situation evolved. With Elias's guidance and anonymous support from a local fund Kameron had quietly contributed to, Tyler began therapy and reconciled partially with his mother. He still couldn't return home fully, but weekly visits brought progress. Tyler texted Kameron one day, "Your flag gave me the words to tell my mom I'm gay. Thank you." The message hit Kameron like sunlight breaking clouds. He showed it to Elias, tears in both their eyes. The betrayal from friends cut deepest when Marcus finally called. "I'm sorry I pulled away," he said. "My wife, she worried about the kids seeing the flag." Kameron listened, hurt but forgiving. Understanding takes time. The conversation ended awkwardly, but it planted a seed. Kameron's family healing continued. His father sent a card. "Proud of the man you've become." Simple words, but they mended years of distance. Elias's own family remained distant, yet he found peace in the life they built. Their relationship deepened through the trials. Late-night talks about future dreams, plans for a small wedding next spring, quiet moments where touch said what words couldn't. As October brought Halloween decorations, the neighborhood prepared for trick-or-treaters. Some parents steered their children away from Kameron and Elias's house. The rejection stung, but they decorated anyway with orange lights and a bowl of candy. Tyler stopped by in costume, grinning for the first time in months. "Dad doesn't know I'm here," he said. The three of them shared laughs, the flag glowing above like a guardian. Internal growth accelerated for Kameron. He started journaling, tracing his journey from closeted fear to this public stand. Elias read passages aloud, affirming each step. "You're becoming the man I always saw," he said. The praise healed old wounds. Yet societal pressure persisted. A local blogger wrote a piece criticizing activist displays in family neighborhoods, quoting anonymous Maple Ridge residents. Kameron read it with clenched fists, but Elias reminded him, "Their words don't define us." A pivotal conversation happened on a crisp evening walk. Elias opened up about his deepest fear, losing Kameron to the stress. "I've seen couples break under less." Kameron stopped under a street lamp, taking Elias's face in his hands. "You're my home. Nothing changes that." They kissed there, oblivious to passing cars, the moment etching deeper commitment. The misunderstanding peaked when Mr. Thompson confronted Kameron at the mailbox. "My son's missing because of influences like yours," he accused. Kameron held his tongue, knowing the truth would shatter the man. Instead, he said quietly, "I hope you find him safe." The encounter left him shaken, but it clarified his resolve. Helping Tyler had become part of their story, a silent sacrifice amid the noise. As leaves turned golden, Kameron felt himself transforming. The flag no longer symbolized defiance alone but connection, to Elias, to Tyler, to a future where prejudice yielded to understanding. The rising tension promised a breaking point, and Kameron sensed the truth hovering just beyond the horizon, ready to rewrite every relationship on their street. November brought early snow and a community crisis that cracked the facade. Tyler's mother reached out to Elias in panic. Her son had left a note and disappeared again. Elias coordinated with authorities while Kameron drove the streets searching. They found Tyler at the youth shelter, cold but safe. The reunion with his mother was tearful, and in the shelter office, Tyler finally told her the full story, how the rainbow flag had given him hope when home felt impossible. The news traveled fast. Mr. Thompson learned of his son's whereabouts through neighborhood gossip. At the hospital where Tyler received a checkup, the family confrontation unfolded. Tyler stood tall beside Elias. Dad, Mr. Reynolds and Elias helped me when no one else would. Mr. Thompson's face paled as pieces connected. The flag, the support, his own son's identity. He left without a word, but the shift had begun. Kameron heard the details from Elias that night. It's coming out, Elias said, the anticipation mixed with dread. Would revelation bring relief or more backlash? Kameron paced the living room, the flag outside dusted with snow. We did the right thing, he whispered. Elias nodded, pulling him close. Their bond, tested by months of strain, emerged stronger. Conversations now laced with gratitude for surviving together. The neighborhood watched as Tyler returned home tentatively. Whispers changed tone. Mrs. Johnson left a casserole on their porch with a note. Thinking of you. Small gestures multiplied. Marcus showed up with his kids, apologizing awkwardly. I was wrong. Kameron accepted the olive branch, the friendship slowly mending. Cameron's internal awakening crested during a quiet Thanksgiving. With Elias, Lauren, and his parents gathered around the table, he raised a glass. To choosing love, even when it's hard. The room warmed with shared stories and laughter. His father clapped him on the back, a gesture worth years of silence. Elias beamed, his hand resting on Kameron's under the table. Yet the real reckoning arrived in December. A local news station picked up Tyler's story after his mother shared it anonymously. The segment featured the rainbow flag prominently. Suburban flag becomes lifeline for struggling teen. Suddenly, Maple Ridge was in the spotlight. Neighbors saw the footage. Tyler crediting the visible symbol of hope. Mr. Thompson watched alone in his living room, the weight of his words crashing down. The line formed 2 days later. One by one, neighbors knocked. Mrs. Johnson first. I judged without knowing. I'm sorry. Then the pool mothers, the petition signers, even the teenager who had yelled insults. Each offered apologies laced with shame. Mr. Thompson came last, hat in hand, eyes downcast. I almost lost my son because I couldn't see past my own fears. Thank you for being better than me. Kameron accepted each with grace, Elias at his side. The apologies didn't erase the pain, but they marked a turning point. Through it all, Kameron and Elias grew. The crisis had forced honest conversations about boundaries, support, and the courage to stay visible. Kameron realized his journey wasn't just about the flag. It was about becoming the man who could stand for others. Elias found peace in watching prejudices crumble. His counseling work now celebrated locally. Their love, once tested by isolation, now flourished in the light of understanding. As snow blanketed the street, the flag waved on. No longer a provocation but a beacon of what community could become. The misunderstandings, betrayals, and sacrifices had forged unbreakable bonds. Kameron stood on the porch one evening, Elias's arm around him, watching neighbors wave from across the street. The emotional arc had peaked, leaving both men wiser. Their identities affirmed, their future bright. Winter deepened, but warmth spread through Maple Ridge in unexpected ways. The apologies continued in small acts. Invitations to block parties, offers to shovel snow, genuine conversations over fences. Mr. Thompson even helped Kameron repair the fence damaged by graffiti, their silence turning to tentative talk about fatherhood and fear. Tyler thrived at home, his journal now filled with plans for college and advocacy. He visited often, the rainbow flag a shared symbol of survival. Kameron reflected on the long road. The internal conflicts that once threatened to drown him now felt like distant storms. He had faced identity crises, weighed sacrifices, and chosen authenticity over approval. Elias remained his constant, their relationship evolving into a partnership of mutual strength. They planned their wedding for spring, simple and surrounded by those who had grown with them. Family ties strengthened, parents visited more, Lauren became a regular. Even Marcus's kids now asked about the flag's meaning, learning acceptance early. Society's pressures lingered in subtler forms, But the community had shifted. The neighborhood association quietly dropped its standards campaign. Local news followed up with a positive piece. How one flag changed a street. Kameron and Elias declined interviews, preferring quiet lives, but the impact rippled outward. Other families hung their own small flags in solidarity. On a clear January morning, Kameron stood again on the porch, Elias beside him. The flag, now faded from months of weather, still flew proudly. "We made it," Kameron said. Elias smiled. "We did more than that, we changed hearts." They embraced, the moment echoing their first anniversary but richer with hard-won wisdom. The journey had taken them through mockery, misunderstanding, betrayal, and finally redemption. Each step shaped them. Kameron from doubtful to empowered, Elias from supportive anchor to equal visionary. The relationships around them transformed too. Friendships rebuilt on honesty, family bonds mended by truth, societal views challenged by lived example. The pivotal choices, hanging the flag, sheltering Tyler, standing firm, carried consequences that ultimately healed more than they hurt. As snow melted into spring buds, Kameron understood the deeper lesson. Visibility wasn't reckless. It was necessary. Love, when lived openly, could bridge divides no one thought possible. Their story didn't end with perfect harmony, but with ongoing growth. New challenges would come, yet they faced them together, stronger for every scar. The flag waved on, a reminder that one act of courage could rewrite an entire neighborhood's story. Kameron and Elias walked inside hand in hand, ready for whatever came next, their hearts full from the journey that had tested and ultimately affirmed everything they believed in. In this story of hanging a rainbow flag amid suburban prejudice, we witness how one man's quiet courage, Kameron's, and his partner Elias's steadfast love can unravel decades of bias and rebuild community from the ashes of misunderstanding. The character's growth reminds us that internal battles and external conflicts often intersect at the point of authenticity. The simple lesson? Standing visible in your truth may invite temporary pain, but it plants seeds of empathy that bloom into lasting change. Never underestimate how your ordinary act of love can become someone else's lifeline. Prejudice fades when hearts finally see the humanity behind the flag. Keep choosing connection over comfort. The apologies will come, and the world you shape will be kinder for it.